Becky Gannon, and I'm mad about miniatures. Today, we are drawing back the curtain to find out more about the miniature models used in movies and TV shows to create realistic special effects. Our guest is miniature model maker Kate Sabaker. She has worked on some big blockbuster movies like Inception, Hugo, Dark Knight Rises, and some of the Star Wars movies and TV shows. You can also find her working with Adam Savage from Mythbusters on his YouTube channel Tested, on which she also has her own show, Model Behavior. And you can find her on Instagram at Kate Sabaker. Let's go talk to Kate. Hello, Kate. I am so excited to have you on the show today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat.
We met at Guild School, and the minute I found out your day job, I was so excited because you make models, many of them miniature, for movies.
I do.
That is the coolest job ever, and I've been trying to find someone like you forever, but it's sort of hard to find those people.
Yeah, there aren't too many of us, and I think that most of us are, reaching retirement age anyway. So it's hard to come across a few of us.
But definitely not you. You're definitely not retirement age.
Not yet, although it's been a hard job on my body, so I think my body thinks it's time to retire, but not yet.
You have worked on some fantastic movies, Dark Knight Rises, Hugo, Inception, and quite a few of the Star Wars movies too.
Yeah, I worked on Solo, on Rise of Skywalker, a bunch of the TV shows like The Mandalorian and Skeleton Crew, and the most recent film, Mandalorian and Grogu.
That is incredible. Did I leave anything out?
No, I mean I've worked on a bunch of small things here or there in between, but those are all the big ones.
Now, how do you even get a job like this? Tell us a little bit about your education and your journey.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've just been making since I was a child, and especially any excuse to make a diorama as a kid, I would jump at it.
Did you have an extra good volcano for your volcano project?
Oh, definitely. But I think the ones I enjoyed the most were, like book reports where I would get to make a little diorama scene from the book. I was constantly like, can we make a diorama for this?
That's awesome.
And then as I got older, I knew I wanted to get into the film industry. So I had gone to a fine arts junior high and high school. Then I started getting into video production. I went to Chapman University for film school. And while I was there, I just was really feeling like I wasn't being hands on enough. Even the production design program, I was designing things, but I wasn't making things. And I luckily had a very wonderful professor who said, you need to be a model maker. And she totally introduced me to this world, got me an internship, and it all just clicked immediately.
That's fantastic. So what was your first internship job?
There was a studio called New Deal Studios in Los Angeles, and I want to say the first project that I got put on right away was The Watchmen, maybe?
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and we were like lighting a rooftop on fire. That's one of the first projects I remember working on. So that was the beginning of it.
Some things are miniature, some things are smaller than real life, but still pretty big. It's just all different scales, right?
Yeah, it truly depends on what the project is and what that exact job calls for. So, if I'm working in stop motion, a lot of times it's a smaller scale. It might be closer to, 1/12, something that we're more used to. If it's for a large effect scene, it might still be miniature compared to real life, but, 1/7 scale of a gigantic fortress building is still going to be pretty darn big. So those we call bigatures, but it all just depends on what the job calls for.
I love that, bigatures. You told me that for Inception, you made a bigature of the building that exploded.
Yes. They built a full-size facade in Canada of what we refer to as the Snow Fortress. I want to say it's like the 7th level, dream level or something. And it looks like a giant concrete fortress. They needed to then make it explode, and they couldn't do that completely in full scale. I think they did some full scale explosions, but they really needed a miniature to bring the whole place down. So we built actually two miniatures at seventh scale, which were, when you include the mountain base that we put with it, I would say was somewhere around 3 to 4 stories tall.
Wow.
As we built it in our parking lot, we reached the height of the apartment complex next door.
That sounds like something you need a permit for.
We definitely all got lift certified as we were up in these aerial cranes and having to, try and reach up to the top of there. We all had safety equipment and hard hats on, and it was a big departure from what I think I'm usually used to.
So is the reason they couldn't just use the facade is that when it blows up, you have to see not just the facade, but the bricks and concrete and whatever else would come out of a building during the explosion?
Yeah, I mean, basically the facade they could only shoot from so many angles, usually from the front, and they really wanted to show the scale of this thing, so they wanted some shots from above. So they got a lot of shots of our model before they blew it up, and then we loaded the whole thing with pyro, and we built it in a way that it was all on this steel structure with collapsible arms, so that, when somebody calls go, we had a sort of choreography of what we wanted to blow at what time. And, they would set off the pyro at the same time as the collapsing arms. So the thing would fall apart and shoot out, flames and smoke, all to look as if it truly was being blown up with explosives.
But that's a one-shot deal, right? I mean,
Well, and hence why we had to build two of them.
okay.
We built two models at the same time so that we would have more than one shot at it. And I will say the first one we did not blow up correctly. There was
Ooh.
this separate tower building that stood in front of it, and the one of the major points was that tower needed to fall. And we go through the whole first explosion, and you come to the end of it, and that tower didn't fall. And
Oh.
I tell you, the mood was tense and everybody was angry. There was a lot of curse words going around. So for the second round, we knew we only have one more shot at this. Not only did they triple check all of their collapsible arms, they extra packed it with pyro, but just in case, just to make sure, they actually tied like a rope to the back of it and had a guy standing by so that when the whole thing exploded, if we saw it was still standing, at very least he can pull it down physically. But I'm happy to say it went off without a hitch the second time. He did not need to pull it down. It looked wonderful, and that was the take they used.
That's hilarious. But I can totally see that. I'd be like, can we just poke it down or
Yeah, exactly.
pull it
You
down?
gotta have a backup.
So I know that you made some very small stuff for some of the Star Wars universe projects. You told me you made some pieces for the Hollow chess set.
Yeah, so in the original Star Wars in 1977, A New Hope, when they're on the Millennium Falcon, Chewbacca and C-3PO are playing this game that is a variation on chess, and it has this sort of a checkerboard, but in a circular pattern. And there's these little monsters that are stop motion animated. As you move your pieces, they fight each other, and the whole thing looks like a hologram. And all of that was created and animated by one of my bosses and mentors, Phil Tippett. And it was sort of a throwaway thing. I don't know that too many people kept that in their memory, except for the line, "Let the Wookiee win." That's kind of a famous line, and it has to do with that scene. And so when they brought back the Star Wars movies for the sort of newer trilogy, they decided to add these creatures back into it. They found some of the original puppets that had been decaying in storage. They 3D scanned them. They cleaned up the models and they made new ones. And so they did that for The Force Awakens. Now, after that, they needed to use them again for Solo, and they brought me in, and I became the puppet person. So I created some new puppets, I fixed the old ones, and I was on standby for what we call puppet hospital while the animators are making these puppets move, so that if anything goes wrong, I can fix the armatures, I can, patch up any holes in their skins or do a emergency paint job, whatever's needed. So I did that for Solo, and then again for Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, I can see that because these puppets, they're moving, they're fighting, they're
Yeah.
they're being rough.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're kind of destroying each other. So there's definitely not only surface marks like that, but if an animator grabs one too hard the wrong way or tries to twist here or there, there's a likelihood that some of the more fragile wire armatures could break. So, we had a few beefy, really good machined ball and socket armatures for two of the main characters, but the rest are just wire armatures, and so they're likely to break. They only have so many bends of their life expectancy in them. So I was always on hand to fix it if need be.
I think that would come with some pressure too because they can't film while you're making it.
Right, exactly. So sometimes it would be if it was a bad enough break that I needed to use special epoxy that needs to set overnight. Sometimes the animator would have to call it a day and go home for the rest of the day and come back and start again the next day. Occasionally, it might be something we had a backup of. Sometimes we would have two puppets. I could work on one and I'd give them the working one while the other one got fixed. But yeah, it's kind of high pressure. Now, in most stop motion studios, if you're a full stop motion studio, say like Leica, that has a lot of stages and a lot of animators and everybody's working at once, you would definitely have more than one puppet to work with. But since this was, a kind of just us making our cool monsters, just like Phil did originally in the 70s, we didn't have a huge budget and a huge amount of people or time. So we had the one set and we had to make those work as best we could.
I would have never have thought about working with puppets being so stressful.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
But I guess any job can be stressful.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What is some of the smallest stuff you've ever made?
Let's see. Some of the smallest stuff would be I worked on a project with Phil Tippett called Mad God for 10 years.
Wow.
And it was an amazing project. He worked on it for 30. It was just a sort of never ending passion project of his. And there were some teeny tiny bits for that like, I don't know, in the background of a scene, there might be a miniature evil scientist lair. So I remember making some very small scientific beakers and such. Maybe some little tiny critters in the background. In that case, we didn't even really have scale because it was like whatever looked okay or would fit in the background or it was forced perspective. So sometimes they would get super, super small and you would just kind of wing it and hope that it would work.
Like so much in life.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So do you have some other favorite projects or favorite things you've done?
Like I said, Mad God was probably one of the things I'm most proud of. It was so creative and so out of the ordinary, and it gave me a ton of one-on-one time with Phil Tippett, who's just this unmatched genius. I think I'll be most proud of that. When I die, I'll be thinking, I worked on it for 10 years, but I could have done more.
What is Mad God about?
Well, Phil famously, almost comically, when asked that, replies, it's non-narrative. So
Okay.
there's not particularly a story to follow. It's sort of you're bombarded with imagery. There's somewhat of a main character for part of it who is kind of like a mercenary. Sometimes we call him the assassin. He has to deliver this package and he travels through different worlds and realms and, is assaulted by monsters and sort of sensory experiences as he goes. Anything you can imagine, he put in there. And it was truly a gift because you never knew what you were going to do each day. I don't have the ability to sit at a desk and do the same kind of job that I know exactly what to expect 9 to 5. And this was the perfect thing for me because every day I'd walk in and he'd be like, okay, Kate, we're going to go to the Chinese market and buy a squid. And then we're going to dip it in ink and we're going to make an imprint of it to make a print. Then we're going to stick it in a jar and stick it in the background of this weird mad scientist lair. And I'm like, yes, okay, of course we're going to do that, How could I have not guessed that when I woke up this morning?
That's amazing. What an amazing experience. Wow.
Yeah.
So, such a variety of things that you've learned to do.
Yeah. You kind of have to do a little bit of everything, which I was really privileged when I started my internship at New Deal Studios. They wanted to teach me everything on the job. So, I wouldn't just do one department. I would hop around to whoever needed me. So one day I might be in paint, one day I might be in like the wood shop, one day I might be in the mold shop. I would be helping the guys in the metal shop. I would, be adding crazy details for set dressing. So I got to really bounce around and learn a lot of skills at once, which has been extremely necessary, I have found, for my entire career. Maybe if I just worked at a super proper stop motion studio where it's very separated, maybe that would be okay to only have one task. But even when I did work at a shop like that, I found it was really helpful to have a mold making background because I knew if I'm going to be making a prop that then needs to be molded, I'm going to go over to the mold shop and say, "Hey, how do you think you're going to set this up? I want to make sure that I don't put too many undercuts in this for you, or I want to make sure that I, glue it in the right orientation so that that sets you up the best for it." So it really is helpful to know exactly every step of the process along the way so that everybody is set up for success.
Such a gift too. I think I had a very different career. I was a lawyer, and I always liked doing different things every day. And you do that a little as a young lawyer, but the more they can get you to specialize and do just one thing, the higher they can rent you out at.
Right.
So there's so much pressure to become a specialist so soon.
Yeah, right? And I mean, I definitely found myself being pushed or gravitating myself towards different areas. I would say at my current stage of my career, I definitely am a bit more of a painter. I found that that was the part I look forward to the most. I found that that was what I got the best at, specifically in weathering and aging. I not only enjoyed it, but I think if I do say so myself, I think I got really good at it. And a lot of times someone will contact me just to come in and do finishing work on a piece. Maybe it's already mostly painted and I'm going to come in and just do the weathering.
Okay, that's amazing. It's like, so I have this piece. It looks brand new. Will you like crapify it for me?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And there is nothing more satisfying. Like even if I do end up making a piece from start to finish, I construct it myself, I paint the whole thing. I'm going to be honest, I kind of hate it for most of the time I'm working on it until I get to start to weather it because to me, it's not alive until then. Until then, it doesn't feel right. And so I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at it. I'm like, none of this is right. And then the minute I start to weather it and finish it and really get it to look proper, then I'm like, oh, okay, yes, okay, I did it right. This all looks great now. I can breathe easy.
That's so interesting. I had two young boys. I remember in the 90s at some point, distressing became a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember someone trying to buy some wood floors and they said, well, we can, distress them. That's in. And I was like, yeah, I've already got two distressors at home. It took me like a while to get into that look because I was so busy trying to get them not to make everything look distressed.
Right. Well, and there's so many variations. Say you're not going for the this has been through a battlefield kind of look, which I've
Right.
definitely done. I've distressed tanks and whatnot. But even if you're just going for, say, a dollhouse, say you want it to look like a very realistic dollhouse, and it's not going to be especially dirty and it's not going to be especially old, but there are small details that you need to add to still make it look real. Like I personally can get a little bit caught up on when somebody lays in what's supposed to be like a wood floor and it looks too perfect because even a brand new perfect wood floor isn't perfect. So I'm always looking at the spaces in between the wood slats. If you don't have just a little bit of shading in there, then you're losing your detail and it's not registering as real. there's this element of reality that comes in whenever you add just that tiny bit of something that catches your eye that if you're too close might seem like a giveaway, but when you back up, you go, oh, now it all fits. Now it all looks real.
I laid my first wood floor fairly recently for a dorm room, a 1980s dorm room, to
Oh, cool.
celebrate my college 40th anniversary of graduating from college. And I think actually it worked out really well because I did have some planks that, the floor wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
But actually, I just went with it and sort of discolored it a little. And I was like, this is a dorm floor. Our dorm
Yeah.
floors looked, tired.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also had a lot of trouble finding a paint color for my room because I remembered, it had that sort of, it wasn't dirty per se, but it had that sort of like, it was painted 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing can be harder to do than you think.
It's very hard. And I think a lot of people go in and they think, okay, I'm just going to put like a smear of something here, or I'm going to spray this one
No.
corner. And in a way, it almost makes it worse because then you're like, okay, well, there's a term that we use called bumping. And so if you were to, just do one heavy thing in one corner, I would bump on that. It wouldn't feel right. That's the thing that would pull me out of it. And I would fixate on that. And it took me quite a long time to learn the art of going heavy enough that you can then bring it back. It's never a first try thing, I never like go in and just do one swipe and go, okay, there it is. It's I put it in, I take it off, I put it in, I take it off. And it's like this little dance you do of trying to find exactly the right level. And there's nothing more satisfying than when you hit it.
That's funny because at one point I had actually glued my posters on and I didn't like them. And so I took them off and, they left behind little traces of the poster and just a little texture.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was like, I got to move where my posters are. I totally want people to see this, whatever this is.
Perfect. Yes.
Right?
Well,
because that's what college walls look like.
exactly. Well, and so I also work with Adam Savage from Mythbusters. He has a YouTube channel called Tested. I help on videos on there. I do model making tips and tricks, and I help him on some of his builds. He is a former ILM model maker doing much of what I used to do. And his whole thing is whenever he would be out in public, if he would see a, really distressed wall, like a grungy brick wall or just anything that looked like old paint, he would take photos of it. Because one of the things that's really hard to do is when you go back and you're trying to distress something on your own, we automatically start to do it very uniformly. And it's very hard to step back and go, no, maybe there's only, dirt on this one side. Maybe, there was a water leak and it came down in this specific pattern and it didn't get to the other part. And so by collecting reference photos of this kind of aged paint and stonework and things out in public, it helps you remember that, yeah, maybe there's just going to be a smudge in the middle of it or just off to the side. And you can't balance it out with equal smudges in other places too. You got to let there just be one smudge sometimes. Like you really have to remember that nature isn't uniform.
But I'm just starting to get into that because when I first started making mine, I just wanted everything to look good, to look
Right.
perfect. It was during COVID and I needed some control.
This is therapy.
Yeah, and I just wanted everything to look perfect. It's
Of
been
course.
a long journey for me away from that, but definitely more interested now. And one of the things I think is the hardest is upholstered furniture in miniature.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
couches. They either look brand new or they're dirty. Like it's very
Yeah.
hard to get them to have that, like, I look at my chair, you can kind of see the chair I sit on every night to watch TV. You can kind of see where I sit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it can be hard, right? It does feel sometimes like it's a black and white thing. Like either it's brand new, never been touched, or it was left outside for 20 years. It can
Yes.
be really hard to find that regular level of wear. And that's where there's an art, I think.
Yes. And when back to the dorm room, when I did it, miniature fabric is hard because there's no such thing as miniature fabric. It's just a small piece of regular fabric. So
Yeah.
and you get the thinnest you can, but that's about all you can do. And it doesn't drape like it should in miniature.
Yeah, I've definitely found that I've struggled myself with draping in miniature. I've had to do it for some stop motion puppets before, and there's two different things that I've done in the past. And one is, trying to artificially fold it where you think that it would drape, and then having to apply a lot of starch or something to make it hold that shape.
That's what I've done. I actually sort of did starch or Mod Podge in water, soaked it in
Yeah,
there, and then kind of clipped and wrinkled and held it while it dried.
exactly. Well, and then when I'm working with a puppet, like we had a puppet one time for the show Poker Face, and it needed to be wearing like a toga. And you can imagine how a toga drapes.
Oh,
It just
wow.
did not want to do that. It didn't want to do it. And so even when I used some starch, it then was impeding the movement because we have to remember this puppet needs to move. It's not a stationary thing like say in a diorama or a dollhouse. It needs to move. And in that case, then it needs to have that draping move as the puppet moves. So what we did is we found where we wanted those folds to be, and then I lined them with armature wire behind it so that it sort of formed underneath the fabric. It looked like it was draping how it wanted to, but then as the animator, say made this person walk, they could move the armature wire underneath the fabric and that way they could animate the folds in the toga. And it was the first time I'd ever considered doing this, like animating fabric. But when you work on a stop motion feature, that's something that people have to deal with all the time. I think that's probably why there aren't so many flowing garments in stop motion, but it was a problem I didn't know needed to be solved.
Wow. Well, that's genius, but it's also another big task for the animator.
Yeah, exactly. Again, why I think they don't do it too much because they're like, oh, this is one more thing I got to animate.
I can just see the credit, clothing animator.
Yeah.
Like, what's that? That's really interesting. So, one of the things you had told me before, too, is you're also known for your greenery.
Oh, yes, I absolutely adore Green's work. Like, I started doing some of it when I was still at New Deal Studios, and I think that's the thing that like sparked my interest. And it was little things like we did a commercial for I don't know, I think it was like Arrowhead had a kind of a bubbly water or something. And the commercial was we built these miniature forest scenes and then they would add CG characters later. So this wasn't stop motion. It just needed to be a set that they could film and then animate on top of later. But I got to work on this miniature forest and I just got lost in it. Obviously, I'm a miniaturist, so I love tedious work. I could sit there and do very detailed stuff forever. And this was one of the ones they had to pull me away from when they were like, it's good enough. Let's just film it now. It's like, oh, no, no, no. I could add a little bit more here and I could do, it was never enough for me because I just wanted more trees, more bushes. There's a lot of fun stuff I learned on that. We wanted to make a really pretty grassy meadow. And so we took white faux fur and I sprayed it with a few different spray paints to get, some color variations in it. But you would be amazed at how grass-like that fur looks like when you put it down. It was just the perfect stand-in. And then we did a commercial for a video game and we had to have some desert shrubs. And if you take a chip brush and put glue at the bottom of it and chop the bristles off, then those bristles become these wonderful little dried bushes that you can dress around your scene and cover the bottom with dirt so you don't see the glue at the bottom. And I could do it forever. Like I ended up getting placed in the greens department on a stop motion feature because I was like, I just can't get enough of it. Like they asked me what I had for ideas for these crazy bushes they wanted to do. And I kind of went crazy and was like, oh, well, we could do this and then we could do this. And they're like, okay, you got it. You can do it. This is your project now. And so I spent months just working. I was dyeing fabric. I was laser cutting leaves. I was painstakingly applying them. It was wonderful.
I'm still stuck on Forest Grass. I kind of want to replace my weedy lawn with just faux fur that's been painted.
Perfect.
Even nicer to walk on, probably.
Oh yeah, I would just be laying on that, I'm sure, with my face on it.
So I was scrolling through your Instagram and I came upon this adorable R2D2 Halloween costume
Oh yeah.
that you made for one of your kids. And I
Yeah.
started laughing because I thought, oh my gosh, the moms, when they see you coming with the costume, they must be like, oh no, how can we compete?
Well, the thing that's glorious about it is, so yes, I do this for a living. I can use any number of professional materials out there. But what I get the most joy out of, truly, is doing it crafty style. So, like, I made an R2D2 costume out of a collapsible trash can.
Yes, that cracked me up because it was something, sometimes my kids would come home and they wouldn't tell me they needed things until the last minute. I
Exactly.
made a 10-minute giraffe costume out of a paper bag, some other things like that. So when I saw it was just that pop-up laundry basket, I was like, you go, girl.
Well, and that one truly was born out of my kid was about 2 at the time, and I thought, "Are they going to keep this costume on?" I know how much they fall over, I know how active they are. If I made it out of something rigid, say, like a bucket, they're not gonna wanna keep it on, they're gonna fall over, they're gonna hurt themselves, but if I use something that's soft and collapsible that they can bend over with, that they can if they drop their candy, they can, reach down and pick it up, it's lightweight, it's not digging into them, and I was like, "Oh, right, this is exactly what I should do." So then I just covered it in, vinyl cutouts and used a half round of styrofoam that I painted and glued some baubles on, and then the one thing that was, like, I guess a step above, but still wasn't that complicated, was I got a really cheap little, like, noise box with a button on it, and my partner helped program all of the R2D2 sounds into it, and then I just glued that noise box inside so that my kid could push the button and make their costume make sounds whenever they wanted to.
Okay, that is a step above. Now, did your kid love the costume?
Oh, definitely. Now, unfortunately, that was the year that COVID hit our house. So
No.
I spent all this time making the costume, and then the day of Halloween, we got a positive test. So we knew we couldn't leave. But, they were so excited about the costume. I was excited that I put all this work into it, and it was kind of gonna be their first year trick or treating. So, set up trick or treating in the house, and so I would run ahead and, I'd hide in the bathroom, and they'd come down and knock on the door, and I'd open the door, and they'd say, "Trick or treat," and I would pop some candy in the basket, and then my partner would run down to the next room and close the door, and then we'd walk down to that door, and my kid would knock and say, "Trick or treat," and so we got to at least have the fun of it. They got to get their candy and feel like they were trick or treating and get some practice in for the next year.
You sound like the funnest, nicest parents in the world. I remember my big Halloween list, and of course, I have at no time worked in a special effects shop, was the kids wanted a ghost that would come down the stairs and scare people.
Ooh.
So we got a pulley, that went up and down the stairs, and we made your traditional cheesecloth, and starch ghost over the laundry basket. And it would, and they could pull it, and it would rush all the way down the steep stairs.
Oh my gosh.
I was pretty impressed with myself.
I mean, there you go. That's a fun mom thing to do. Come on. That's awesome.
Oh, yes. I was all in on Halloween. I still am. But yeah, that's really interesting. So Adam from Mythbusters, that's what you do tested with, and you make videos with him. Mm-hmm. So, when I think of Mythbusters, of course I know it. I had 2 boys. And, I would say the plot is pretty much we blow things up.
Yeah.
So what's the coolest thing you blew up?
So with tested, we don't blow anything up, sadly.
Oh.
But that was my former job, right? That was all of the miniatures and models that I did for visual effects. I mean, honestly, that was my favorite part of it because, and that's my number one question I get. You spend all this time making a painstaking miniature, and then you have to see it get blown up. Isn't that heartbreaking? And my number one response is no. It is the most cathartic experience you can imagine. Because after 3 months of building this thing, of all of the onset drama of, this person didn't do this right, or I've had to remake this 3 times. Like when you get to the end of it, you kind of hate the thing you've made. You're like, I'm ready to be done with this. And how many people get to say that when they get frustrated at work, they just get to push a button and watch it burn? Like that was so incredibly cathartic. I absolutely loved it.
So I would guess you mostly get to blow things up because, of course, that's what's hard to do in real life with things.
Yes.
But do you
Yes.
sometimes also do like a flood or a fire, or is it almost always an explosion?
Um, we did some on Mad God, which was all stop motion anyway. We did do a lot of kind of avalanche stuff. We did some floods. We did like water pouring in. We did some underwater stuff for, I think it was Battleship.
I've always read that filming with water or filming on the ocean is some of the toughest scenes to film, that really
Oh,
makes it hard.
definitely. No, luckily we never actually went out into the ocean. We always faked it, but we did use water in a studio, and it makes it so hard. But then again, we also work with pyro. So, if we can do explosions, I think we can do water. So we did some underwater coral reef stuff for Battleship, and then there was the side of a ship needed to look like it got hit by like a cannon or a missile or torpedo or something. And so we did all of this research where we'd take thin sheets of lead, which, I mean, of course, it's super toxic, but the amazing thing about lead is that it's so soft and pliable. So when you need to make something look like you just blew a hole and it has that kind of what do you call it? Like the mushroom effect, like like Looney Tunes or something. Lead is the best thing to use because it wants to do that like kind of crazy mushroom effect. So we had this whole period of time where we were just doing tests over and over again on these sheets of lead where I would score it in a certain way and then I would glue all of these extra pieces of metal behind it, and then we'd set it up and they'd set off this sort of like an air charge with like a little bit of pyro, and they'd see how it looked on camera. And no, okay, that one didn't quite look. So I'd run back, I'd grab it, I'd come up with another test, and we'd do that. And it was just back and forth of all of these different, like, how can we make this ship look like it's exploding in the correct way?
That's so cool. So, what are some of the projects you've done on Tested?
So on Tested, it's a little bit more of like a show and tell situation where it's either look at this thing that we've already made or watch us make this in process. I have a show called Model Behavior, and it's all about model making tips and tricks. So different episodes will be different ideas that I have of like, okay, hey, have you ever wanted to make something look like it was rusty or like it was covered in snow? Or here's how you can make some fake wood flooring, or just a lot of different techniques that I've used throughout my career, and sharing those with people who do them at home for, say, tabletop games or displaying their collectibles, that type of thing.
And this is on YouTube.
This is on YouTube. Yeah.
And is that when you made the Blade Runner blimp?
Yeah, so Adam had purchased this kit. They call them garage kits if it's not something that's easily available. It's like somebody kind of made the bare bones of this project, and he bought it off of this guy, Jason Eaton. And Adam then brought me in and said, "Hey, will you assemble this for me, but then also modify it? There's things I want different. There's things I want to be more screen accurate. I want, these features in it. So I want you to do it for me." So he brought me in. I spent a few months making this blimp, and at the end, it had full fiber optics in there. It had working screens. So it was just like in the movie where it's, a new life awaits you on the off-world colonies. It was a really, really cool project. It was a long one that definitely tested the limits of my capabilities because I am by no means an electronics person. And luckily, at one point, I was able to bring in who is now one of my dearest and closest friends and collaborators, Mel Ho, and they were able to help me with a lot of the electronics and the board and programming everything.
Wow, it looks really cool.
Oh, thank you. The weathering on that is still to this day one of my most favorite, probably proudest things that I've done. Like the number of times that I went in with different colors and different materials and, streaks here and powder there, and even the teeny tiniest bird poop you've ever seen. So actually, maybe that's to answer your question. That might be the smallest scale thing I've ever done is bird poop, the smaller than, a grain of rice type of thing. But that's also a bit of an inside joke because as we were doing it, Adam asked me to put it in there and I stopped him and I said, well, there is no bird poop in this universe because there are no birds in Blade Runner. Like it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And he says, I know. And I want you to put it in there, one, because it's fun, and two, because I want to see if people will freak out about it. And they did a little bit, but we made sure to mention it in the video that, yes, we know it's not supposed to be there, but we did it anyway because we wanted to.
That's funny. That's really funny. So, are you going to Comic-Con?
I am going to Comic-Con. I go every year. I started going when it was like with Tested, and we would go and we would shoot some videos and we would interview some people about, new collectibles that are coming out, or if they had a really cool display. Like one year I got to go and interview some of the people from Leica about like a sort of a retrospective of Coraline after however many years it had been. But now at this point, I go on my own, keep up with people that I only see once a year, see all the new cool stuff.
Why don't you explain what Comic-Con is?
Yeah. So Comic-Con is a yearly gathering. Now there's many all over the world at this point, but this is San Diego Comic-Con, which is generally accepted to be kind of the original or the bigger one. And it's a giant gathering of everything pop culture. It obviously started just as a place to gather if you were into comics, and you could buy really amazing vintage comics and trade them there. You could meet some of your favorite comic artists and authors, meet other fans just like you. And there was a lot of cosplay and dressing up as some of your favorite characters. And over the years, it has really evolved into everything pop culture. So now, if there's a new big movie that's coming out, they will usually have a panel there and you can see some of the movie stars. There are fun giveaways, there's exclusive merch. It's a place to buy every kind of collectible you can think of. And again, you can see, I don't know, Jason Momoa, talk in front of thousands of people about whatever new movie he has coming out, that kind of a thing.
So it's comics, it's superheroes, it's sci-fi.
Yes,
it's everything.
exactly. And I usually go, I'm part of an avid Star Wars fan community. And so usually when I go every year, I get to meet up with all of my favorite Star Wars people and we'll have parties and just really enjoy being together and being nerds in a very welcoming, accepting environment where there's no judgment at Comic-Con. Everybody's free to be exactly as weird as they want to be. And we're just here to support each other.
I remember the first Star Wars, not chronologically first, but the first that came out.
Yeah.
And I think I was in early high school or something. I don't quite remember. But I remember the scene in the bar with all the aliens that were mainly puppets and things like that. And I just never seen anything like that before.
Right?
I mean, it really broke so much visual ground.
Exactly. And actually, a lot of those creatures were designed and made by my boss, Phil Tippett. He even plays one or two of them. He wears the masks himself.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that movie still holds up with the special effects. It still does.
1,000%. I'm a diehard original trilogy fan, and it's what inspired me. Like when my professor said you should be a model maker, I just thought that's not still a thing. Like I know that they did it in Star Wars, but they don't do that anymore. I wish they did. And the fact that this was even an option for me, and then to now get to work with the people who did that in the first place, it's a dream come true.
So I saw you talking in one of your videos, and it was really interesting. You were talking about the joy of making, and that it doesn't always have to be about how it turns out, but about the joy of just doing it.
Yeah.
And I really love that, in part because I do love making things, and I love making things more than sometimes how I love that they turn out.
Right? You don't want to discount your whole process just because the end didn't, happen the way you wanted it to, right?
Exactly. This is what I'm talking about.
I find it especially relevant now that we're in an age of efficiency and automation.
Yes.
So, not to say that I don't use 3D printers and laser cutters and such. They definitely have an amazing place in the making community, and they've made so many things possible, and they make things more accessible to more people who maybe don't have the natural ability to make them from scratch on their own, or that they don't have the time to do it. But I think sometimes we get caught up in the idea of, oh, well, couldn't you save yourself all of this work by doing this instead? And I just go, why would I want to save myself from the part that I like? You know, kind of in line with a lot of the arguments over AI right now, and especially like, say, to write something for you. And it's like, oh, well, you can just have the machine write it all for you. And that way it takes care of the busy work. And all of the true writers I know go, but that's the art, that's the work. Why would I want to take away the part that I like?
Yes, see, and I don't want AI to paint or write for me, because you learn and discover things when you're writing. I don't want them to make my minis. I don't
Yeah.
want them to write a play. I want them to fill out my kids' camp forms, my kids'
Yes.
school forms. I want them to take care of my insurance when they overcharge me. You
Right.
know,
If they could do my dishes, I'd be very happy with
yes,
that.
yes. But at the very least, they need to take care of like 95% of my paperwork. That's what I want AI to
Do the
do.
busy work. Yeah, do the stuff I don't want to do. Do the thing that doesn't make me human. The thing that makes me a human artist is the way that I make my art. And I don't want anybody to take that from me.
Also, the truth is, when you're experimenting and when you end up making it one way, there's three other ways that maybe you discard it. And writing is the same
Yeah.
way. I used to write quite a lot as an attorney. But you can't get to that end without going through that other process. It's
Yeah.
part and parcel, and if you skip that, it shows. And it
Right.
shows in the art too. I mean, this is how we learn.
Yeah. Some of my best techniques have been learned through mistakes on other things. Like, so for example, if I'm working with styrofoam, say I have a piece of styrofoam, I've sculpted it into a shape I like, and I want to paint it. Now, early on in my career, when I was just starting out, I took that piece of carved styrofoam, I took a can of spray paint, and I spray painted the styrofoam. And do you know what happened?
I do know what happened because I've done it. I know exactly what happened. It shrunk.
Yeah, it melts it. It eats away at the surface, it shrinks it down, and of course, in that moment, it ruined what I was working on. Now, in the future, I have styrofoam and I want to make some craggly looking rocks.
Right.
Well, guess what I know how to do now? I know that if I spray it either with a spray paint, now I'll lean towards something super toxic, like spraying it with acetone, and that will eat away at it in such a unique organic pattern that you're left with some amazing looking stuff afterwards. And how did I learn? I learned it by mistakes. I learned it because I tried to do it one way and I know it doesn't work that way. And now when I'm like meeting somebody new and they're like, "Oh, look, I have this great thing. I think I'm just gonna spray paint it." And I go, "Okay, okay, okay. Let me teach you what I learned." Let's seal that first. Let's take, an acrylic, let's take anything and put a first coat. You brush that one on, let it dry, then you can spray paint it. But we don't think about, in order to have an aerosolized paint, they have to have a solvent inside of it to keep it from, congealing within the can and to make sure that it'll spray out the nozzle and that it doesn't clog the nozzle. So they have to include a bit of a solvent in that paint.
Yes, and the nice thing is when you learn it that way, you don't forget it.
Oh, no, 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 especially when you put in way too much effort to begin with that you've had to now do it over. But again, so aside from the things that we learn, right? Those are experiences that you learn that you never forget that then helps you teach somebody else because of your mistake. There's the other part that I referred to in my video of the process is what's enjoyable. You know, if you're say you're a knitter, you're not a knitter because you like the blanket that you end up with at the end. You're a knitter because when you're sitting there on the couch and you have this wonderful motion to do with your hands, at least for me, it is one of the most meditative processes for me. My mind quiets. It helps me be distracted enough that I can then have a conversation or watch a show and feel at ease because my brain isn't thinking of three other things in the background. It's thinking of, don't drop this stitch. And I'm able to look down. I'm able to see as I'm going, hey, I'm being productive in this moment, and that's enough. Hey, I have something really beautiful sitting in front of me. And the only thing standing in the way between this and a finished project is my two hands and my creativity. And when I finish this, it's going to be great, but I'm going to automatically start thinking of what I'm going to do next and how I can keep going because, you know, I never want to be finished with every project. I always need something else to be doing because I'm a maker and I'm an artist and I need to be making. And that's what makes me happy in life.
Okay, so you're a professional maker. Like a miniaturist, do you have more supplies than you ever need? Do you have
Oh,
kits you haven't made, or is that just us gals at home?
oh no, 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 no. Of course. I have model kits that I maybe will never get to. I have supplies. I'm like unfortunately one of those little hoarders where I'm like, "Oh, did you see the styrofoam custom packaging that this thing came in to, you know, keep it safe in transit? This is such a cool shape. I bet I could make this into something someday. I'm going to put that in my someday pile, you know, or here's all the scraps left over from this project I did. I'm sure I could turn that into something. Or like whenever there's a craft sale or somebody going out of business or a garage sale, I'm like, you know, do I have a project I need 5 pounds of glitter for? Not right now, but just give me time and I'll come up with it. So yeah, I'm constantly hoarding supplies and materials. And I'm sure that if, you know, a bomb went off tomorrow and I was stuck inside my shop for the rest of my life, I probably still wouldn't get through everything that's in here.
One of your videos that I just loved was you showed what you got. It was like basically a sale on random faux fur. And you had a whole box of random faux fur. And I think
Yes.
watching that and guessing what was coming next, I think that was some of the happiest 30 seconds of my life.
Right? And I had so much joy when that box arrived. There's this online store that I like and I'll order fabric from them. And they had like, don't tempt me with fur remnant blind box. Like I clicked buy on that so quick. And the day it showed up, I couldn't contain how excited I was. And I started to open the box and I go, wait a minute, if I'm this excited and I don't know what's going to happen, I wonder if any other person would feel also the excitement and the anticipation. Maybe I should film this before I opened it. So I genuinely did open it in real time on camera. So you got to feel exactly what I felt. And I'm so excited, Becky, to learn that you shared that with me. If nobody else, I got one person who was like, yes, what's the next piece of fur going to be?
I was like, this is just amazing.
And I'm happy to say I've already used a bunch of that fur, you know, for things like birthday cards that my kid decides need to look like a monster, for, you know, Halloween costumes, for any bits of decoration, for little props that I make for cons. I'm constantly pulling from that kind of supply stock.
Well, also, one thing that really endeared you to me is you said, I put on the note, love color. And that's exactly what I would have done too. Like send someone else the brown faux fur.
Yeah, exactly. I was terrified I was gonna buy this and it was gonna show up in all earth tones, and that would have just broken my poor little heart. So they saw me coming and they did me right.
They did. So It must have been a culture shock to come to miniature school.
Yeah, so I knew a little bit what I was getting into, and I knew that I would be a little bit a fish out of water, but I was so excited anyway. So the way that I look at it is, I come from the visual effects model making world and the film and TV world where you're going to take whatever material you can find, you're going to fake it so that it looks like something else, you're going to do it as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And, with us, it's, good enough, right? Like it just needs to look good on film for however long it's going to be there, usually a millisecond. And that's it. We're not going to spend longer than we need to. We're not going to make it out of any expensive materials. And coming to Guild School was so different because, whereas if I was tasked with making a chair for a movie, it would be like, all right, I'm going to take some foam or some balsa. Maybe I'm going to like cut it in a general shape. I'm going to glue it together, slap on some paint, and hope that you don't see it too good. But at Guild School, if you want a chair, you got to turn those legs. You need to come up with tiny nails. You need to use actual wood with the right kind of grain. You need to stain it properly. You need to make sure that everything is precisely fit because this is to be enjoying the process, right? Like we talked
Right.
about, it's the art of making it. And B, these are for miniatures that will be closely scrutinized. They're for the people that want to look at them up close. You want to see it under a magnifying glass and appreciate the skill, the art, the craftsmanship that it took to do it. And so this was a whole new world.
They are made to, many of them, to stand the test of time.
Yes, these are heirloom pieces that, if we're so lucky, they will go to your grandchildren or, maybe you've gotten them from your grandparents. These are things that are made in an old-fashioned way that stand the test of time with traditional skills. It's really quite amazing and it was beautiful and it was a nice way for me to be able to stop and say, it's okay if it takes me 1 week to make this one thing, which is an unusual aspect for someone like me who it's constantly like, okay, next thing. Okay, what do you got out? Why are you still on that? We don't have time for this. We don't have budget for this. Because not only is it a budget for materials, it's budget for time, right? They pay me by the hour. So if I take a very long time to make this thing by hand that's not going to be seen, I've wasted them money, I've wasted the production money, and nobody wants to bring me back after that, right? So this was a really fun way of learning new skills too. I did a class in which I learned enameling, which I've always wanted to learn. And so that was great. I got to learn to use a kiln. I was silver soldering. Like I'd done some soldering before, some torch work, but I'd never really worked with like an acetylene tank and real proper expensive silver. Yeah, definitely the kiln was a fun new toy that unfortunately now I want one.
Yes, everyone does when they do that. Now, I will say that while there is a lot, like you described, making the chair, making silver, that is done as close as possible to the actual thing, there are other miniatures, well, even artisan level miniatures, like food made from clay,
Yeah.
that is completely different than that, where you are looking for just the look of it.
True. But one of the things I think that's gorgeous in that, I'm more of a painter and especially a detail painter. So this is something that I have already spent some time on, but I would think that taking a class in which, say, you were making those tiny cheese boards or all of the grapes and flowers, that it had you appreciate. Whereas before you might have thought, all right, grapes are purple. Now you're going, well, no, wait, there's a golden layer in here and it's darker on this side. And I need to add the depth of it and I need to make sure that the full texture of it is coming across so that when the light hits it, its reading is real. Like that was, I hope, something that people got out of that. Not to mention just how freaking tiny those things were.
I'm sure it was because my first miniature class was with Jeannie Anderson and it was a Halloween board. And we got into a huge discussion about tiny candy corns. Because apparently the name brand has some kind of little indent on it. And I was like, if I put that indent on it, I'm going to lose my 3 colors. So I'm like, I'm making the generic candy corn.
It makes you have to make with purpose. You knew exactly what you were making.
So yes, you're really standing there going, okay, somebody go find a close up of a candy corn so we can settle this debate.
Well, and see, then I'm sitting there going, because I did in one of my stop motion movies I had to make these miniature lollipops. And as I'm making the lollipops, my first few tests on them, I was getting the feedback of they're reading too flat and reflective. And a real lollipop isn't just painted, it's a colored material. So you actually have a slight bit of translucency in a lollipop. So then that made me have to go back and get a material that I could tint the material instead of just painting on top of it. I had to tint the material and then actually mix it by hand so that the swirl was a real swirl that was made by 2 materials. It wasn't a painted on swirl. And so at the end, you would have this translucency for that lollipop. But you said candy corn. Now I'm sitting here going, well, you would need a little bit of translucency on that.
Right, exactly. The things that our mind goes to on that. Well, Kate, it's been just such a pleasure to have you on. I was just so thrilled to meet you at Guild School and hear what you did, and just talking about it has just made my day. I am a huge fan of pretty much every movie you've ever worked on. So this has been a big deal for me, and my sons are both super excited to listen to this.
Oh, awesome. I mean, I'm just a huge nerd in general for making for movies and for miniatures. So when I met you and you were so amazing and sweet, and then you asked me to come on here, I couldn't have been more excited. So thank you.
Yeah, so I hope this opened up people's eyes to some of the similarities, some of the differences. Let's get out some faux fur and see if it really works.
Oh, definitely. I want to see some really nice looking lawns on your miniatures.
I think you will. I think I'm going to do that. Well, thanks so much again. It was great having you on, and we wish you the best of luck in all your future puppet making, gadget making endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
I so enjoyed talking to Kate. It's really fascinating how they use miniatures and bigatures to create all those amazing special effects in movies. If you like the podcast, please drop me a review or comment or message. It's word of mouth that makes this podcast grow. And remember, there are no rules in your dollhouse but the ones you make for yourself. Goodbye.